So, really quickly, I'm going to tell you about two quick steps that you can do that's going to skyrocket your social skills that I don't see lots of people talking about on the internet. It's kind of crazy, right? So, I always used to struggle with like social skills. In school, I was the guy who was known for being shy, and I struggle with not knowing what to say, being nervous in conversation. And this made me feel bad because I looked at everybody else in my school, right? And everybody else seemed to be able to socialize with people, make friends. They seemed to be able to they were seemed to be like more likable, and I was here experiencing the problems of being alone, not knowing what to say. And so one of the things that I started doing during this time was like a bunch of research, right? So I started watching tons of YouTube videos. I started reaching social and confidence books. And it wasn't until these two things that I'm going to share in this video completely skyrocketed my social skills. Like, it's made me more confident in social skills. People actually start wanting to talk to me and wanting to be my friend. And so that's what I'm gonna get into. Really quick two steps that you can do right now that's gonna skyrocket your social skills. So the first thing is getting your adrenaline up before social events. So getting your adrenaline up before social events. And so I'm gonna tell you a story on how I know this works, right? So basically, this one time I knew a guy who he wasn't too social. He kind of was in the same boat that I was. He was struggling with social skills. And I remember this one time we were in school together, and every time that I worked with this guy, he would be super silent, right? But then one day, he started talking to me out of nowhere. He started being like super hyped up. I noticed like he was saying like more in conversation. He was kind of like participating more in class, right? And this like it kind of didn't make sense because he was more of like a reserved guy, right? But after working with him that day, he basically started talking to me and he told me that before class, before school, he had literally just ran like a 4 mile like 4 miles in his neighborhood because he was training for like some marathon, right? And ever since that day, he started running and like practicing every single day before school. I noticed that he went from like really quiet to someone who's like really social, right? And in this moment, I realized that when you get your adrenaline up, your heartbeat starts going up. Like it's like you go through something hard, and then your anxiousness and anxiety, it kind of like suppresses because you've already went through something hard. If you do something like really early in the day, you kind of already get used to like, that heart rate and like that pressure of like going in social anxiety, right? And you kind of just start your day with a win. So literally what you can do is you can find ways to like improve your journal and like get really hyped up in the morning before you go to school, before you go to like a party or like whatever social event you have to go to, right? And so in my experience, the best thing to do is exercise before. Now, if you can, that's fine, right? But if you can find some way to like get your adrenaline up, your body's going to be like pumping with blood already. So you're not gonna get like your body's not gonna get anxious because of like that anxiety and like that hard buildup, right? Because you've already done it in the morning. But literally, this is like training you to get your adrenaline up, and it's going to allow you to be like 10 times more social than you normally are. The second thing is taking advantage of when people ask you questions. So I used to be somebody, right, who would kind of just like not really say much about me. Like if somebody would ask me, "Oh, what are you doing?" I would just be like, "Oh, I'm just doing some homework." And then instantly after that, I would ask them, "What about you?" And then the other person would respond and they would just talk about them. But I'm going to tell you why doing that is a mistake, right? I'm going to tell you on why you should take advantage and kind of just take time to talk about what you're doing, and take time to talk about yourself when somebody's asking another question about you, right? So the reason why that is because when you flip the question to them, it kind of takes the momentum away from you. So for example, this trick I got from a book called Storyworthy, right? And like one of the most important things that the author talks about in the book is relatability. Because if people don't know you when they talk to you, if people don't know your story, if people don't know like who you are, which requires you to talk to them, you're not going to be relatable whatsoever, and they're not going to know you. And the reason why, if somebody asks you, "Oh, how was your day, bro?" The reason why like just saying something quickly and then asking them about their day is a mistake is because it doesn't allow like the other person to get to know you. So for example, if somebody asks you what are you up to, right? You can literally like what I want you to do, right? Is like you can literally just like maybe get into like a specific detail on what you're doing. So for example, right? Somebody asked me this week in my class what I was up to. And I literally told them, dude, I got like 2 to 3 exams, right? Like I have an accounting exam, I've got an econ exam, and I've just been like studying all day and it's just been a hard week. And this was different than because if it was me back then, I would have just said, "Oh, I've been studying all day, man. What about you?" And then the other person would have talked about their day, right? But I remember during this instance when I like told them exactly what I was doing, right? They were like, "Oh, okay. I actually have like an accounting class too." And then they started talking about, "Oh, like I also study like you as well. That's interesting. We study the same way." And because of that conversation, literally just because I like highlighted what I was doing, I talked just a little bit more about what I was doing, right? They got to know me more and we started talking about more things. And this person, right, started asking me more questions. Now, I'm not saying never ask people the other question, right? I'm not saying that. Like explain yourself and then you can say, "Oh, what about you? What have you been up to?" right? But take advantage and take at least some time to explain when somebody's asking a question about yourself. It's not selfish whatsoever, but it's allowing like the other person to like actually know you and get to know you more. So those are two things that are like completely skyrocket your social skills, right? So try those out. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next one. Peace.